I owe Biggie an apology already. He doesn't even know it. He has no idea. Chris Kelly right here. There's Chris Demm right there.
Hello.
There's Biggie.
Howdy.
My dearest friend. My dearest friend sitting in there. And I was too quick to swipe at you today. And here's what it was, okay? 10 minutes ago. We're just sitting there, another show prepared. Sitting back going, now all
Nothing we can do except wait for the clock.
now it's just execute. Now it's execute. The plan is in place. There is a grid here. Now it's go out and execute. And it's just time to chit-chat. I'm having the last minute Celsius, sitting there watching the news for the next 5 minutes. Then we walk into the room. Okay. Chris Demm says, here's something interesting on Twitter. Who was your favorite athlete when you were 13 years old? I instantly said Michael Jordan. It was 1984. He played for the Tar Heels. It was his last year there. I absolutely idolized him. I say to Chris Demm, who's yours? He instantly said
Reggie Jackson.
He's 13 years old. This was 1975. We played for the A's then.
Played for the A's.
They're in the middle of winning a bunch of championships. I never loved Reggie Jackson, but now looking back, I do. That's right. That's right.
Wow.
I never liked him.
That's a late bandwagon bitch move.
I'll tell you why. I hated the Yankees, and when I remember, he was a Yankee, so I couldn't stand it. Plus, he was like cocky. That's how I considered when I was a kid. But now when I look back and I hear interviews with him, I'm like, okay, he's pretty cool. And when he played for the A's, which I don't even remember, he was just phenomenal. So anyway, I say Michael Jordan instantly. Chris Demm says Reggie Jackson instantly. Chris Demm says, wonder who Biggie would pick. And the year would be 1996. Biggie would be 13 years old at that time. You know what I said about you? I said, he won't know.
Didn't even hazard a guess, Biggie. He won't know.
He won't even know. I said he'll say Kobe Bryant, but that's not right. That's not right.
It couldn't be true.
Then Chris Demm said, well, he's a Cubs fan. I said, well, he pretends to be. I mean, he's bandwagon.
What? No, I'm not.
That's his bandwagon. Yeah, Cubs. Yeah, he ain't going to know any Cubs from 1996. And Chris Demm said, what about football? I said, he ain't going to know no football players from 96. So who is your favorite athlete from when you were 13 years old?
When I was 13, it would have been 96. It would have been all basketball for me.
Jordan? Heyday Jordan.
It was Jordan heyday, and I wore his shoe. I mean, all I wanted every summer was Jordan shoes.
You know what Chris Demm said? Chris Demm said, well, he's a big Duke fan. I said, what's he going to say, Mark Allery?
Yeah.
You think Mark Allery? Come on.
Dude, but at the time, I was really into the Charlotte Hornets.
So you're going to say
I would probably
Grandmama?
No, I was going to Muggsy Bogues basketball camp.
Muggsy Bogues, your favorite athlete.
I went to, so I was every summer I'd go to Muggsy Bogues basketball camp when I lived in the Charlotte area.
You know what?
So I'd say probably...
You have a tougher time because 84 is Jordan. I mean, there was as soon as Chris Demm said it, I was like, oh God, I had everything he had. For him, Reggie Jackson. For 96, I mean, who are the stars? And Jordan, but everybody loved him.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson? He was one of the highest paid athletes of 96. I looked it up.
And you have to really be a boxing fan.
Yeah.
He was up and down by then, right?
Yes, I think he was in jail and out by then.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? He was.
Maybe because he won the title in 86?
Yeah, because early 90s he went to jail for a couple of years and then came out.
What's funny is in 96 that would have been also like I living in the Charlotte area is just big Hornets. So Del Curry was there, and I met young Stephen Curry.
You met him when he was a little kid,
very little kid, because his dad brought him and his brother to Muggsy Bogues basketball camp.
That's cool.
You should have gotten his autograph when he was a kid.
Funny story.
Sounds creepy now.
Well, listen, and here's why I say it. You know that famous story about Grant Hill. Do you know that famous story about Grant Hill? Do you know this story?
Which one?
Well, Calvin Hill played for the Cowboys in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's Grant's father. And now I don't know if this is true or not. It may be an urban legend, but I've heard through the years that at one point Calvin Hill was at a charity or celebrity golf tournament. And Calvin Hill was a good football player. I mean, he's not... Win a ring or two?
Probably with the
Dallas?
Cowboys, but not like a Hall of Famer or anything. And somebody, now this I've heard, I don't know that this is true, that somebody got Calvin Hill to sign a magazine that he was on, and Calvin Hill's young son was standing next to him, and Calvin Hill gave it to his son to sign also, and he scrabbled out Grant Hill. And the guy got it back and thought, well, this was ruined because this kid put his autograph on it, and it turned out to be Grant Hill. So later he has it framed and everything because it says Grant Hill. So if you had creepily asked Del Curry, get your young son to sign this in case he grows up to be
your
something.
toddler.
That's right.
Can he stop dribbling the ball for a minute? Ironically, even then, he was launching threes at the basket.
I'm sure he was.
And his handles are sick.
Just heaving them up. That's right.
I have something signed by Ken Griffey Jr. and his dad.
What?
That's cool.
Now, that's money. That's money, player.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because I don't have
That's money. You better sell that.
I don't have any way.
You chasing the dollar.
That's all I do. Is chase.
Well,
all you do.
I chase a dollar.
Here's
now.
the problem. It's we had friends who used to own like a portrait studio, and they did sports portraits. I have tons of old Charlotte Hornet stuff. I have a Michael Jordan.
Yes.
And I have a Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr.
signatures or
signed.
photos?
Like a portrait that was like
Signed.
drawn, and then they both signed it.
Junior and senior.
Yes. The problem is I have no like certificate of authenticity.
Yeah.
You know, this was from the 80s.
Well, people will believe you.
90s.
People
Yeah.
will believe you.
And well, I mean, people now, it's hard to say.
Well, there's such a market for
There's
that
such
kind of thing.
yeah. But I have it still sealed and wrapped up in my closet. I always have.
The point is, I apologize. I said to Chris Demm, Biggie's so thick-headed, he won't be able to go back to
Oh no,
1996.
I know. I loved it. We played basketball day and night in the summer.
You know what I'm ashamed to say? I said, Biggie's probably he's driving through drive-through windows at McDonald's and so
Who was his
13.
favorite
It's
athlete?
all-
Wendy.
I was 13. I couldn't even drive.
I said, Biggie's stuck over there.
You're fat shaming me in the.
Biggie's having nothing but Big Macs and he won't know
Yeah.
sports. He had no idea. He was a little
The
bum.
Hamburglar.
What a terrible, terrible thing to say
Yeah.
about my dearest friend. And here I am talking about it. I owe you an apology.
You do actually. You're fat shaming a 13-year-old.
Well, he's bandwagoning with Reggie Jackson and now you.
100%
He's
right.
really late on these.
100% right. And here I am. How could I do? And so many of these programs, I start by saying, Biggie, I owe you an apology. I don't know what it is. I guess leading up to showtime, I've got you in my crosshairs for whatever reason. I threw a challenge at him late today, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's normally we don't get into this kind of thing. But today is, and you talk about something that's been completely created, that came from nowhere and means nothing. May the 4th be with you. The Star Wars.
Do we know when that originated? I'm sure our fact check could dig it up. But
10, 15 years ago?
I feel like that's when I started hearing about it.
I bet it came along real earlier, but then it became part of the culture.
I think the internet also
Absolutely.
made it much bigger of a thing.
I think I heard it for the first time maybe 10 years. You just kind of hear it, but then, it becomes... And then, of course, people have to profit over it. And television stations today play Star Wars over and over and over again. I'm sure there are retail outlets giving May the 4th be with you specials and all that. Well, we saw something on television, and I threw this at Biggie. I said, get this piece. I want audio from 1983.
Excuse me?
1983.
I was a newborn. Do you want to shame me too?
You don't know Star Wars.
What do you know?
What do you know about Star Wars?
Said the man who confused Jabba the Hutt and Boba Fett.
Let's face it, I pretend to be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I'm not really. No, they did a piece on ABC News in 1983 about the movie Return of the Jedi, which was coming out. And by this point, it had become such a big deal because 6 years earlier, Star Wars, out of nowhere, had become a huge hit. Then Empire Strikes Back. And now it's Return of the Jedi time. Now, that's 40 years ago. It's literally 40 years ago this month. And so they sent a reporter to the streets in Hollywood where people had lined up for days to get the first tickets to see Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, people in sleeping bags
That was a thing.
on the street.
Even then, that was a thing for that movie, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but man, the tone is so different than what you'd get today.
Absolutely
It is.
right. Here, David Brinkley, ABC News, was guest anchoring on the ABC Evening News. Now, you want to talk about a guy reading through this through gritted teeth. As Biggie said, the tone is
When they handed him the rundown.
Oh,
He's
And
probably
we're going to close with a Star Wars piece.
oh, what?
it's going to be the biggest thing in the nation. for weeks.
What?
No.
Are you kidding
I have
me?
to read this?
So David Brinkley, the movie's going to open in 2 days. They've already had people camping out for a week outside the theater, and David Brinkley reads it like this.
A new movie, the third in the Star Wars series, opens on Wednesday. And when it opens in Hollywood, some will have been waiting in line for more than a week. And it is clear the audience will not be your ordinary mom and pop and the kids, as ABC's Judd Rose reports from Hollywood.
You should see his face looking at all these freaks out there. You know.
These hippies.
All
Disgusting.
these freaks sitting in the front of the theater doing nothing for a week to watch this
Don't
movie.
they have jobs?
A new movie in Hollywood. And so the reporter goes to the first fan he sees and talks about him.
These are the 50-odd, emphasis on odd, men and women who camped outside a Hollywood theater, some for the past 6 days and nights, to be first in line for Jedi.
I know why I'm supposed to be here. Why? Because I got nowhere else to go.
How about that? How's that for you? Look at these oddballs out
Look at
there.
these losers.
I know. Yeah, look at these
Raise your
odd.
hand if you've ever been touched by a woman.
Anyone? Anyone?
Just flicks his cigarette at him.
You could do that then.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's what I mean. Yeah, then
that's
you
how
could.
good.
Yeah.
What a different time.
Look at these oddballs. Oh, you never do that
You can't
now.
call somebody an oddball now.
This is the largest collection of freaks in Hollywood
Yeah,
since Madame Tussauds Wax Museum.
yeah. Now that guy would say this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah,
People
of
would be like,
course.
oh God, oh,
Live your
oh,
truth.
yes. Oh, he's a real Jedi.
Embrace your inner nerd.
Yeah. Back then, what are you, unemployed? You beatnik.
You do it out here. So then they
The good news is some of them will be mugged.
Hopefully 3 of these people won't survive.
that's the
What?
Apparently they're in a terrible neighborhood. They're it's on Hollywood Boulevard, and it's just an awful, seedy section of town. And the guy says, we're in a bad neighborhood. But when he interviews one of the fan says, well, you know what? That sort of coincides with the movie.
Jedi will be opening in more than 950 theaters nationwide. This one happens to be on Hollywood Boulevard, an unsavory part of Los Angeles, where it's not surprising to see strangely dressed people sleeping on the sidewalk. But even in this high-crime area, the fans of Jedi have triumphed over the forces of darkness.
Most people you consider bad are on our side. It's like the Force is with us.
That's right.
Oh.
Bad people really are on your
Yes.
side. But
People sleep on these streets all the time.
These idiots are here by choice.
They're not strung out on the crack or the heroin.
What a group of losers. Back to you, David.
And didn't they have?
oh my God.
I saw some of the video. Biggie, you may have too. They had primitive versions of what lights. You can only do so much with a lightsaber,
Yeah.
but they just had like little flashlights.
Yeah, that's all it was.
That's all they
yeah.
had then. That's
Yeah.
all they had. And some were dressed up. There was a guy dressed up like Darth Vader. And they made
Yeah.
fun of him, of course. And look at this the guy walking up and down there, all in costume.
Look at this gimp.
And finally, some of them had taken a cutout of a star. It's like a gold cellophane, and put it over an actual star. This is where the Hollywood stars are. And they made one for George Lucas, who he didn't have one yet. So they put it down as if it was George Lucas's star. And there were more interviews of people now finally getting ready to go into the theater.
This morning, the Jedi faithful dedicated a makeshift star in honor of Star Wars creator George Lucas. That's one way of passing the time until the first show, which isn't till Wednesday morning. But already, those at the front of the line are making plans.
It's going to be nice and dark and warm in there, so we're going to probably go straight to sleep.
Judd Rose, ABC News, Hollywood.
I'm as disgusted as you are, folks.
Did he say straight to sleep?
Yep.
Judd? He did, David.
Then they went back to David Brinkley, and he's like, "The real news now in Nicaragua." Our top story tonight. Yes, you know that David Brinkley did not relish doing that story. And here we are now, 40 years later.
Right.
And look where we are, still doing Star Wars stuff. And now the whole day has become Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you.
Does the well, I guess Disney owns the properties now. Will they make some sort of announcement today about a next
Well, I don't know. There's so many
series,
announcements
movie?
now. There's so much in that
because
world.
now they dedicate like a whole. Now they have their own like what they call their Star Wars Expo. They might. I'm sure if you logged on to Disney Plus today, you'd see it pop up and say, "Hey, may the Fourth be with you. Here's all the stuff we have here at Disney Plus." But I don't think there's going to be any.
No new announcements.
Yeah, there's really nothing coming down the pipe right now either.
Well, there's so much already out there.
They just did, and they just did their Star Wars.
Chasing
Their
that
Disney
dollar.
Expo, yeah.
Chasing that dollar now.
Well, it works.
Well,
People buy it.
Of course, it absolutely works.
They just premiered trailers for a couple new Star Wars shows a month ago, so they're not going to have anything today, really.